because for whatever reason, just did not want me to go live on my laptop. So anyway, as you can see the title, it is Why Chicago Police Arrest Law-Abiding Black Gun Owners. I prefaced, War on the Poor. What in the world is going on now? Give me a second. I'm trying to still set it up because I don't know what it is with YouTube today. I had to go live from the phone. And I literally just clicked it. And it is literally, there we go. Okay. All right, let's go. Because I don't even understand how it's, because one site, it has it where it's just a photo. The next one, actually, I'm live. Anyway, live from the backyard studio anyway, because I have two now. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to kill the biggest lie people love to repeat. You're not going to, if you're not doing anything wrong, police won't bother you. That's a fantasy. That's comfort food. That's what people say when they've never been a target. Because right now, today, I'm not talking about 1960s, I'm not talking about the 40s, I am talking about 2025, right? Today, we have documented cases in Chicago where the police are arresting black law-abiding gun owners who had their paperwork, had the license, and still ended up in cuffs. And even worse, an inside police source flat out said, the quiet part out loud. They believe, this is a police officer saying this, that race was a factor in these arrests because, again, I'm going to repeat, we're always told if you are not doing anything wrong, police won't bother you. You have a police officer saying, hey, race was a factor in a black motorist that had a gun being arrested, that had the proper paperwork and had proper licensing, and that the officers avoided doing this in more fluent areas, because again, somebody told me when I said this literally last week, the officers avoided doing this in more affluent areas because those people have the means to come back at them. A police officer in Chicago said this. And here's the great part. You can actually look this up. This is literally on YouTube. This was not something I picked out. This was Friday. This was a story Friday. And the reason why it was such a big story Friday was because they arrested a senator or mayor or whatever the hell the dude was. They actually arrested the dude. He was like, hey, you do realize who I am. Now, a lot of people use that card, but at the same time, you do realize who he is, right? And at the end of the day, it's not random because it is mathematically impossible for the actual arrest numbers for the incarcerated individuals to be, for someone that looks like me, to be at 50% or more if you're not looking for them. This is a system doing what it is built to do. So, welcome back to the show. And today's episode is about police bias, but not the cartoon version. No dramatic movie villain, no twirling a mustache. Actually, you see mine is real light. We're talking about the kind of bias that hide behind procedure. The kind that wears a badge and tells itself discretion because it is a choice. The kind that only feels like Law and Order when you're watching it happen to someone else. Because I can't tell you the amount of stories that people tell me that they were once pro-police and police. They're only good, they're only good until it happens to them. And then they're like, okay, all that shit that you say now doesn't sound as crazy because it happened to me. Because everybody's comfortable with it being skewed as long as they aren't the victim where the skewing is happening. Because in real life, police don't just enforce laws, they enforce hierarchy. And I'm going to say something I've said 100 times. Even with the admission from this police officer, there is a war on the poor. Because they're not going after in these affluent areas and doing it. Because even policing isn't done the same in affluent areas. Because just to give you an example, when I lived downtown El Paso, I lived near the border, the police presence was let's just call it ridiculous. Because literally, I would see a cop every 30 seconds, literally. And I wish I was exaggerating. I moved to another side of town. I've been here, well, let's call it the place I'm in now. I've only seen a cop one time. And I think he actually lives over here because I was going to the store. That's literally, I think he lives here. So it's the most crazy thing because I say it, people argue with me, but then when a cop says it, they overlook it. He said out of his own mouth. And again, this is not something that's being hidden. It's just nobody's watching it because that's not sexy. That doesn't require you changing your idea if you don't see it. Ignorance is bliss for a reason. Because at the end of the day, the war on the poor is not because the poor are morally worse, but because the poor are easier to pressure, easier to arrest, easier to ignore, and harder to believe. Which is why he said they don't do it in the affluent areas. Because those people have the means of coming back at them. Which means they can pay someone to go do something to them, to have an effect. Most people can't. And that's literally the 80% of Americans cannot. And you know, accountability looks different in the streets. It's not a body camera. It's not an internal affairs poster on the wall. Accountability is when the person you stop has enough resources to make your life difficult if you lie. That's literally it. Can I actually hold something on you to make you do your job properly? Because there's not a coincidence that when I was younger and a hardhead, that I got an opportunity to talk to police all the time. I'm older, got some knowledge up here, got a couple of dollars in my pocket. My brothers and friends got a little coinage. It's not really something that the police don't really want to talk to me. There are several factors to it, but that's the main one. It's because I can and will hold them accountable. It's not an if, it's not a hope, it's not propaganda, because I've done it. So it makes it difficult to actually hold me to the standard of no pressure, because I'm going to apply pressure. I'm going to make that, it's going to be the easiest arrest they ever had, but you're not going to be able to ignore me. I'm not difficult to believe because the pressure that I'm going to apply and to make you stand on law is going to be astronomical. Because the one thing I loved and my father taught me, there's nothing more dangerous than a fool with a purpose. Because then you will become my 100% focus, and I would be a fool not to destroy you. And these are the things that police think about when they're in their midst of discretion, when they're thinking about what they're going to do. And that's what we separate here. Because when we're talking about this, making their life difficult. That is part of their discretion. That's their decision making. And here's the part that people don't want to face. An inside police source described exactly that logic. Officers may think folks in more affluent areas have more means to come back at them and for any arrest for situations like this. That statement alone is the blueprint, and it tells you how policing works when nobody's watching. Enforcement follows vulnerability. Can this person, or more likely, will this person? Because they hear 30,000 times a day, I'm going to sue you, I'm going to sue you, I'm going to sue you. And 90% of cases, 95% of cases never get heard because most of those people do not actually affect a lawsuit. And many of those people that do affect that lawsuit don't know how to do it correctly. And that's the biggest problem. And today I'm going to break down how police can arrest people who aren't breaking the law and still look legit on paper, because I've also spoken about stock language. The myth of if you're innocent, you're safe, because again, we got documents that says otherwise. Why this hits poor communities harder every time. And finally, what you can do about it in the real world defense playbook. Yes, I'm gonna give y'all a little something today. So before we get into it, this show is educational. And if you're dealing with a real case, be sure you set up a consultation or you find someone that's competent to at least listen and point you in the direction you need to be in. And hopefully that's what we're doing today. And don't forget to hit that like button. Now, let's deal with this myth first. If you did nothing wrong, you're fine. That's a bait phrase. Just cooperate. If you didn't do anything, you'll be fine. Somebody said that to me the other day. Oh, if you don't do what the police say, you're gonna get in trouble. Cool, let's stand on that. What part of the law is that? What part of their job duty is that? Because I was told if a police officer gives me instructions absent a crime, that's a violation on him, not me. Because he has the duty, not me. I have the right to shut up. I might not have the ability to, but it's called the Fifth Amendment, the right to silence, because I can stay away from self-incrimination. Because more often than not, we're programmed to justify ourselves versus actually standing up for it and making them do their job properly. Because even when we're talking about just cooperate, the three phrases that this thing actually assumes. The police always know the law, and we know that's not correct. Police always apply the law fairly. We know that's not correct because it's discretionary. And the system corrects mistakes quickly. Let's ask a young thug, because he sat in jail for 3 years. I actually just noticed it. It popped up over here. It popped up on my feed because I actually did, after he was incarcerated and his attorney got on TV and did what he did, I did a video saying, and at the time I was actually living in a hotel, I told him, I said, this is what your lawyer did wrong. And that was 3 years ago. Matter of fact, 3 years ago, a couple months ago. And even Fannie Wilson said, or Willis, I don't think Thug did anything wrong, but he sat in jail for 3 years. Let that sink in. So even if he didn't do anything wrong, why was he locked up at all? The prosecutor, the DA said, I don't think he did anything, except he's friends with these people and he gives them money. So why was he in jail at all? Because if that's the case, my kids, lock him up because I get him money all the time. That's all I'm saying. But the CBS reporting describes case after case where people had valid licenses, the license to carry and a concealed carry, and still got arrested. still got charged, and still had their lives disrupted. And the psychological trick is, even when charges get dismissed later, people say, see, the system worked. No, the system chewed you up and spit you out. You didn't get the months back. You didn't get your job reputation back. You didn't get your mugshot erased from Google by magic, because you actually have to put in work to get that done. And that's why no harm, no foul is one of the most dangerous lies in American policing. Because what happened when lawful people get arrested anyway? Again, the CBS News Chicago reported an inside source alleging some police officers are arresting black legal gun owners despite having valid licensing and concealed carry. One example, Curtis Tarver. He was pulled over for a minor traffic issue. He thought was a taillight. I'm going to say that again. He thought he was being pulled over for a taillight because that's what the officer told him. He told the officer, hey, yeah, I got a gun here in the car. He showed his FOID and his concealed carry. And the body cam reportedly captured the officers acknowledging the license was valid. Yet the officer said it showed revoked in the lead system, and Tarver was arrested anyway. Say that one more time. The officer told him he was being pulled over for a taillight. That was a lie. He told him after getting both of his licenses, they were valid. He then told him, oh, well, no, it's not. It's showing revoked in the system, which was a lie, which is why Tarver's case was dismissed. But here's the see, ready? Because here's the pause. This is how lawful becomes jailable in real life. The traffic stop becomes an investigation, which is why shut your mouth. Record everything. There's literally, I was on TikTok yesterday, and there's literally a dash camera for $25. I've been preaching dash cameras since 2018. I actually still have videos up about getting a dash camera, because if you're riding around without cameras or not in a Tesla, you are an entire idiot. And I mean that the way I just said that. Because just because it doesn't happen to you yet does not mean it will not happen, because it's not about law. They're not pulling people over because they've done something. Hence, Curtis Tarver. Oh, I'm pulling you over for a taillight. Taillight wasn't out. They were pulling him over because of another quotas. Because if you get enough of this stuff done, you get promoted. You get people noticing you because you appear to be doing the business a good job. Because even when you allow the investigation, because even give you the next part, we did the young man in Virginia, the police officer, who had over 400 incidents where he planted drugs on innocent drivers that allowed him to search. You had the young man down in Savannah who did 100 before he got caught. You had the task force in Baltimore who literally did thousands collectively, because theirs went over a 5-year span. Literally thousands of innocent people, because you're not doing anything wrong. I just did the video a couple days ago. I want to say a week ago. The officer was stealing money out of the backpacks, out of the consoles, out of the glove box and the armrest from drivers. Because again, we did the one in North Carolina, Charlotte. The officer stole $900 from an inmate, from the dude that he was arresting. And the crazier part is the dude basically turned himself in. I watched almost 3 hours of body cam video. This dude damn near turned himself in because it was another incident that he was a part of. And he was like, hey, well, yeah, there's a warrant for you. He was like, oh, shit, okay. Let me get this squared away. He said, I'm going to keep my money on me because I'm going to end up having to come back because he was going to be extradited. Well, the money that he tried to keep on him, the officer stole. The problem was the officer's own body camera caught him. And then he lied about it Not once, not twice, 3 times, until they downloaded his body cam footage and said, hey, is this not you stealing this money? He said, you know what, I'll take an Alfred plea and I'll resign. He wasn't fired. He took an Alfred plea and he's actually working again in North Carolina. These are the things that I talk about. This is why I make them do their job. They the ones volunteered to go do it. Make them do it properly. Because even in the companion CBS piece, Lewis McWilliams described being stopped, doing everything by the book, showing his valid licensing, and still arrested and charged with felonies when officers couldn't find the concealed carry in Leeds. Months later, prosecutors dropped the charges after they determined the license was valid. So when someone tells you, if you're legal, you're safe, I want you to remember this pattern. Legal didn't save them from being arrested and charged with felonies. Because the legal friction point, what the law says versus what police do. Now here's where it gets surgical. Illinois law spells out how disclosure works during a stop. It says that when an officer initiates a traffic investigatory stop, upon request, the licensee must disclose they have a concealed carry firearm or present the license, and it explicitly states the disclosure requirement is satisfied if the licensee presents the license to the officer. Says nothing about being valid, not being active, says nothing about that. Disclosure requirement is satisfied if the licensee presents the license to the officer. Why? Because it's going to not only have their name, their location, but it also has the serial number from the firearm that they have for the concealment. The validity of it is not part of the statute. And that's critical because it means a database glitch should not be free. A database glitch should not be a free pass to treat a lawful person like a felon, especially when the person is literally handing you their license. And yet, CBS reports these arrests happened anyway. So the bias isn't not only a feeling, it shows up as a decision. Do we verify first or arrest first? Do we treat paperwork as proof or do we treat the person as a threat? Do we just use discretion to protect citizens or do we pad a stat line? Because what are we doing? They're arresting first. They're treating the person as a threat and they're padding stat lines. All of those are contrary to law. Because here's the next part. Because I was told police don't have quotas. CBS, because again, not me, CBS reported the inside source claiming there be a personal and financial gain for some officers, saying high numbers of firearms recovered get supervisory attention, and promotions can mean more money. Yes, I paused for dramatic effect. Now watch the machinery. If your department culture rewards gun recovery, you can manufacture the wins by targeting people who are the easiest to stop, least likely to sue, least likely to have media attention, and most likely to be treated as suspicious even when compliant. Whoops. I did a video in 2017, and it was probably the first short YouTube actually deleted because they called it hate speech. I asked the question, How can I ever be unarmed if you weaponize my skin? I asked the question. And then you get this mug, 6'4", 300 pounds, and I speak directly. I'm condescending asshole, and I look you dead in your eye when I'm doing it. Now, your life feels in danger. Because of my size, because of my skin, because of my demeanor, because of my skin. It's weaponized. That's why I use this. And that thing's shining too. But understand, there's a means, because I understand all that. Because a lot of times what I do is I go ahead and I understand the second a coward comes around me, because they move different. So I do things to go ahead and diffuse it. So whenever they start getting afraid, I go ahead and let them be afraid. But then they don't understand I have the means to get out. And when I get out, I am likely to sue. I am likely to go down to post. I am likely to speak to the governor. I am likely to go through the steps that's necessary to take everything they believe they love. And I'm asshole enough to do it because I have all the free time in the world. Always understand that, because it's not an easy win. It's not an easy win over here. And I'm going to give you everything you asked for. This is not a one-time. This is not a one-off. Even in my bond hearing, they spoke about me having no limits on who I go after. I go after judges. I go after district attorneys. I go after law firms. I go after police officers. I have no limits. This was literally said on the record. So, least likely to sue, that ain't your boy. Least likely to fight back, that ain't your boy. Least likely to have media attention, that ain't your boy. So understand, there's a reason they're making war on the poor, because look how easy stop and frisk was accepted, how fast they paid out, and how it still continues in New York today. To the point officers feel they can actually just grab anyone and stop and frisk them, not even understanding the context of Terry. And they also understand that 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. You can't afford to go back and forth to court. But it's beautiful out here. This is literally my day. I got 24 of them. And that's hours to focus on just you. I can go back and forth to court. We can be there every day if you like. And I want that. So understand that I'm not a person that they want to talk to. But I'm also not in an area where they would consider someone to be an easy target, easy to stop, easy to sue. And it's understood because it's not just in Chicago. It happens in Florida, it happens in Georgia, it happens in anyone that we call a state, because they believe they have carte blanche no matter what. Because we're looking at every day, because I'm actually looking at how I'm going to start implementing bad cop. Because I could literally do the bad cop series and bare minimum do at least 5 new cops across the country every day. And here's the crazier part. I'm even give you another one, because there was a guy down in right outside of Houston, police officer. He was sexually assaulting women at traffic stops. Literally. How he got caught? His own body camera. Women were complaining Nobody was doing anything. They ended up looking at his body camera because he kept his shoes on. That's an old thing. Don't worry about it if you didn't catch it. But understand what I said. He actually was, but again, what law did she break to be sexually assaulted? By a police officer. So these are the things that we go ahead and get rid of, because even CBS also reported obtaining a CPD database through a FOIA request showing tens of thousands of guns recovered since 2009. Tens of thousands of guns recovered since 2019. And they found firearms belonging to people whose cases were later dismissed despite having valid license. They were putting these people with legitimate guns on an illegal gun recovered. Even when the case was dismissed. That's not just a mistake. That's a school board problem. Because if the case is dismissed and the gun is valid, how is it illegal? These are the things that we have to answer, because this is why a lot of people don't like the things that I say, and I get it. Because when it's not, it hurts even more when it's not me that's saying it. You hear me say this stuff, and then it's someone else that goes and rubber stamps it. Because even in the affluent area admission, it solidifies exactly what I'm saying. The war is on the poor. Notice I didn't put a color on it. I didn't put a skin tone. There's a war on the poor because of selection. Oh, excuse me, discretion. Because see, now we hit the part that you told me to spotlight, because it exposes the class logic in one sentence. The inside source, the police officer, I don't know, the police officer, quote, in substance, race is a big factor, and police might not think people on the north side of Chicago, since they're more affluent and have more means, will come back at them if they did the exact same thing as they did in the south side of Chicago. Cop said that. No, we can't go to the north side with this, but we can do this in the south side. Just let that sink in. We can behave this way in the south side of Chicago, but we don't want to do it in the north side because they got money. But when I say, oh no, they ain't got nothing to do with it, that has everything to do with it. I've lived in a million. I know how they. Hi, how you doing? Hi. That was police. My brother lives in the Woodlands. We actually had them come to the house, and the nicest people. The nicest people. But when I was in Augusta, Georgia, I damn near had to. That's a whole nother story. Actually, it's probably, if you put enough of them together that I've told, you'll see what I'm talking about. But it's understanding. Because we don't try this where accountability lives. That's exactly what that says. We will wage war on the people who can't hold us accountable. We'll leave those that can hold us accountable alone. Because in plain language, the less affluent areas, people miss work, they can't afford to fight. They can't find a good lawyer. And they can't absorb even a small disruption. They know this, and the system counts on it because it is a business. It's not about law. Because if I'm cherry picking my victims and I'm picking out people who can't and won't fight back, is it truly an adversarial system? I'll let you ponder on that a minute. So the enforcement strategy becomes pressure the people least able to resist. That's not public safety. That's social control. So now let's see what it looks like operationally. Let's define the police bias the way courts in real life see it. Bias is not only calling someone a name. Bias is how quickly suspicion attaches and how slowly innocence matter. Bias looks like turning a minor traffic infraction into a felony arrest pipeline. I'm gonna lie about a tail light. Oh, he has a gun. Uh-oh, opportunity. Yes, you have license. I can't find it. Well, actually, excuse me. Oh yeah, your license is valid. This license is valid. Yeah, it's showing revoked, even though I just said valid. Even though it's valid, it's revoked. It's validly revoked. So I'm gonna charge you with a felony. I'm gonna take a senator, Pastor Pennington, arrested using his own ID because he was breaking the law and he should have known better to use his own ID. Complying with the police officer, doing the right thing because he wasn't doing something, still arrested. Because here's the crazier part. It doesn't take a rocket science to understand 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2. But I can see something when 1 + 1 isn't equaling 2. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna let you catch on because that's not for everybody. Because even when we're talking about treating compliance as confirmation, I'm not doing anything. Here go my license. Pastor Pendleton. That's what bias looks like. Because we're making assumptions. Because I always, even choosing arrest before verification, using a database mismatch as a weapon, and then shrugging later when charges get dropped. Oh well, I'm going to still keep it illegal. But when we're talking about these things and we're not actually getting into the context of what it is and that thing itself is, we're allowing a disservice and we're cheating ourselves when we're not making them do their job properly. Because here's the great part about it. When you force them to do the job, you're being difficult. Even though they didn't consult you about doing the job when they applied. You need to understand that they have a dangerous job, even though it's not in the top 30. Even though a 7-Eleven convenience store worker has a more dangerous job than being a police officer. Even though a DoorDash driver has a more dangerous job than being a police officer. Uber driver has a more dangerous job. Landscaping is more dangerous than being a police officer. Logging, window washer. But we need to understand, because they're making their job more difficult and we're making it more difficult for them to do that difficult job by asking them to do it the right way. Why would you not consent? Next time I'll just tell them to ask Pastor Pendleton, because he consented. And understand, you know what? I was about to go into something. Let me stop, because I was about to go somewhere. So let's do this. I'm gonna give you a defense playbook. So go ahead and get your pencil and paper out real quick, or like the video and then save it for later. Save it, because I'm about to give you some. Because here's a practical defense, short and real. Say less. Learn to shut up. You have the right to remain silent. Figure out how to have the ability. Be polite if you like. Don't narrate your day. Don't volunteer theories. Be the person of mystery. Document everything immediately after the stop. The time, the location, the badge number, the witnesses. And here's the next one too. You ready? The numbers on the cars. If you can't get the tags, get the numbers on the cars. The number of officers that was there. Because we actually had one in the Blake Simmons issue where there was an officer, he didn't even turn in a police report, but yet he's there on video. So you just not gonna turn in a police report even though you were there on video? I'm looking at you. You spoke to the young man. Why not? Oh, and you have a responsibility to have that. So you violated your oath and your duties by not making a police report when you showed up at a crime scene during a traffic stop. And what you want to do is begin the preservation of evidence. Request body camera, dash camera, dispatch logs as soon as possible. Put it in your request for discovery. Do not assume dismissals fixes it. Because if your case gets dropped, ask about expungement or sealing it and removing mugshots. Now, due to the Patriot Act, not all of your mugshots are going to come down. However, you can get them down. There's a way. Not cheap, but it's done. It's doable. And if you were lawfully licensed and still arrested, you might want to figure out a federal case if that's the route you want to go. Because lawsuits are one of the only languages institutions consistently respect. Because at the end of this, in order to make them leave you alone, you have to punch the bully in the mouth and make them leave you alone. So, let me go ahead and land this. The most dangerous lie in the justice system isn't spoken in court. It's spoken at cookouts, in comment sections, and at family tables. If you're doing nothing wrong, you'll be fine, and police won't mess with you. No. If you're not doing anything wrong, you should be fine, but none of us live in should. But should is also not a shield. The CBS reporting lays out something a lot of people live, but can't always prove. Lawful behavior does not prevent contact, does not prevent arrest, does not prevent humiliation, especially when race and class decide who gets to be presumed innocent. I'm going to say that one more time because that is the line that a lot of people are not going to like. The CBS reporting lays out something a lot of people, let me slow down because I got a little excited. The CBS report lays out what a lot of people live, but can't always prove. Lawful behavior doesn't prevent contact, doesn't prevent arrest, doesn't prevent humiliation, and especially when race and class decide who gets to be presumed innocent. And when an inside source says officers involved doing this in more affluent areas officers avoid doing this in more affluent areas because those people have the means to come back at them. Understand what you're hearing. That's policing as a cost-benefit analysis. That is a business term. So here's the real question. Are you relying on the system to be fair? Or are you building the ability to defend yourself inside a system that isn't? Because knowledge isn't motivation. Knowledge is leverage. Applied knowledge is power. And that's exactly what I teach in the masterclass. How to spot the setup early, how to protect your record, how to force accountability, and how to fight like someone who refuses to be processed quickly. So, if you're done being surprised by the system, join the masterclass. The link is in the description. And if you want more episodes like this, subscribe, leave a review or a comment, and send it to one person who believes innocent people don't get arrested. Don't win by hope. Win by preparing. And I'm out.